Happy Saturday, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Shoot the Shit Saturday, featuring none other than I, the one, the only, rocket blasting,
No,
longer lasting.
no, no, we don't need
You,
to hear this anymore.
you let me get away with it a little longer than usual that time, but
No.
you're
As,
slipping in your old age or something. Because usually, as soon as I say it is I, the one, the only, you stop me right away, and you actually let me get a little bit of traction before you actually stepped in. What's going on, old man?
I was kind of getting your hopes up, and then I was wanting to swat it
And
down.
just
It's like,
wanted to dash him, yeah.
not in my house.
Oh, shut up. Anyway, I'm here with Espionage DB7, and I'm
We're
joined
gonna see
by.
Optimus Prime.
No, I was not.
You are not
And
Optimus Prime.
I very well. I'm a very. Um, I have parallels with.
No.
Yes, I do. At any rate, I'm here with. Let me get your freaking name out with God damn it! With obsolete 2003.
Yo, are you speaking to yourself in the third person
I
now? Is it
might
because
as well
you
should.
go that big now that you're
Oh, for the.
referencing yourself in the third
You
person?
realize that I can't even get the intro done without you screwing me up. This is how bad it's gotten. But yes, anyway, it's me, Espionage DB7, and I'm here with Obsolete 2003, and we are the only two today in this edition of Shoot the Shit. And I do want to start off by saying thank you, real quick, first and foremost, to everybody who has tuned in to our Fallback Friday segments. As you saw yesterday, we have uploaded our season finale for season 2 of Fallback Friday. Something that started on a whim when we, downloaded the Sega Genesis emulator, Sega Genesis Classics, I think it's called, on Steam, and we started with Streets of Rage, and decided we really liked that, like taking it back to the past, and really enjoyed it. And it's actually become one of our more popular segments here on Odds and Ends Gaming, and we have gotten quite a few episodes on there already. We just completed our arcade season yesterday with those two strange, odd games, JJ Squawkers and Biomechanical Toy. But fear not, Fallback Friday will return, and hopefully sooner rather than later. We're gonna take a little bit of a break from it, but I'd like to advise or urge anybody to request, games that you'd like to see played. Generally, our rule for Fallback Friday is as long as it was prior to the year 2000. Or actually prior to the year 1999, 2000, that's fair game. So, if you got suggestions for games you want to see played, for consoles you want to see played, we're definitely moving across various consoles. We're going to see what our Season 3 holds in store. So definitely leave a comment on that below, and we'll definitely take it into consideration and see if we can't upload a video here for your viewing pleasure. But again, thanks for tuning in throughout the Season 1 and Season 2.
Yes. Stay tuned for season 3.
All right. That being said, who wants to? Well, who the fuck am I talking to? Do you want to start us off with a topic, or should I?
Go ahead. If you want to also keep referencing yourself in the third person, by all means.
You know what? Go ahead. You go.
Go
Say
ahead.
something.
No, go ahead. You seem eager. Go ahead.
I just kind of, and I know we've talked about this in the past, but it keeps pissing me off more and more, and the more I think about it, the more I hear about it, and the more egregious it becomes as it begins to fester in my mind. I am sick and tired of hearing of video games as a service, and it's getting to the point that ownership is becoming a thing of the past for anything. I mean, digital convenience is one thing. It's great to be able to load up a game without having to have a disc, you download it. But things like Steam, where you can buy digital copies of a game, are one thing. Whereas digital distribution platforms where you buy a game as a service and you pay a monthly fee for that, that's something else, and I completely disagree with it. I thought about subscribing to some of these services, I really did, but the more I think about it, I realize that I don't want to give my own money for this, because at any given point in time, let's say you're in the middle of a great game, you're invested in it, you're right smack dab, 3 hours in, you got a few hours to go. It's a great single player game, and all of a sudden something happens with the rights of that game. The developer goes to another streaming platform, and suddenly you've lost that game. You might not be able to get it back depending on the availability of it. Maybe it gets pulled in your country. Let's say you lose your internet. I know I, for one, used to have, not so much lately, but I used to have some spotty internet, and there were times that I would go days without internet service, but I always had my games on disc, and even from that, I used to have my games in offline mode on Steam, which I still can have. But when you have games as a service that require your internet, you're giving up ownership. There is no such thing as ownership anymore. And for anybody who thinks that it's because of the fact that it's about convenience, it's not. This is a game developer's way of staying, as they say, engaged with you. Same thing goes for things like loot boxes. I have seen and I've heard and I've read articles about these little meetings and these little rallies that these developers have looking for ways to exploit. And it's one thing. Any company is going to look for ways to capitalize and market things. Capitalizing on something and exploiting something, I think, are two very different things. And these developers are engaging in egregious, predatory, greedy, sickening practices, exploiting, people's addictive natures.
Hello, I'm here to talk about monetization. It's Let's Go Whaling. It is about a summary of a huge bunch of behavioral psychology. So the tricks on how to monetize a game well. Some of you will probably be slightly shocked by all the tricks I have listed here, but I'll leave the morality of it out of the talk. We can discuss it if we have time later.
Yeah,
And
it's basically they're the dealer or supplier to us. It's almost like a drug.
yeah, get them hooked on a gateway game and start them off small and get them into bigger and bigger increments.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously on the same topic or subject matter, it's the latest EA thing where they rebranded loot boxes to what?
Surprise mechanics.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's not loot box, it's a surprise mechanic.
And they are not microtransactions. It's recurrent user spending. Get it right. It's not microtransactions. It's recurrent user spending. What fucking bullshit. Get the hell out of here. It's like, it's not...
You're not fooling anyone, EA.
Yeah. I as consumers, for anybody who tries to circumvent these damn practices and starts pirating games, you can't. Then the developers shouldn't say, "Oh, they pirated our game." No, they just used creative acquisition. Right? That's what it is. It's creative acquisition. It's not piracy. It's creative acquisition. So yeah, and like I'm sure pretty much everybody knows about that hearing that EA rep had, where basically she tried to compare loot boxes to things like Kinder eggs. And I personally would love to see whatever company makes Kinder eggs sue the crap out of EA for basically dragging their name into the mud. It's kind of like, lady, we make candy here. What the hell are you dragging our name into your bullshit, trial or
Yeah.
whatever? So,
Justification.
exactly. It's like, why are you dragging us down with you? But at any rate, I know we've brought it up before. I know that's the thing that's going on, but it's just becoming more and more prevalent that it's permeated every aspect of gaming, and I hate it. I miss the fact of just being able to buy and own a game. And if I can't say I miss it, because you still can, but it feels like it's being phased out more and more and more. And it's not for convenience. As much as they'll tell you, as much as you hear, it isn't not about convenience. It's their way of keeping their hands in their pockets. They don't want to release a game that you can buy and own, and they're never going to make a dime off of you again. They want to release a game that you're going to pay $60 off of, and then every so often pay another 10, 20, 30, 40, $50 here and there.
Well, it's
Recurrent.
not even that too, but yeah, well, like these subscription services. I mean, for the most part, they'll start low at first, and then so that way they get you. It's like, oh, $20 a month, that's not too bad, or $60 for a year subscription. But then after a while, that price is gonna eventually go up so that they can make a profit once they got you hooked. And it's like, what are you gonna do once
Line and
the
sinker.
price goes up? And then it's like you don't own the game, so you just have to eat it or cancel and buy the game or whatever.
Yeah, so this is basically me saying I refuse to subscribe to one of those. I'm not telling you guys not to do it. To each their own. Again, this is just our opinion piece. This is my opinion. For a good long while, I thought about it because they do seem convenient. But I figure if I support it, you know, I'm helping what I hate. So, yeah.
Settle down.
Yes, the friggin' AAA gaming industry needs to settle down. They need to settle down with all their bullshit. You're not gonna be able to run a game anymore, man.
They'll still be there for the few, but then I think it's a matter of time before disc owning is going to become obsolete.
Just
I mean,
like you.
Xbox. Xbox is coming out. They already came out with their discless game system.
Let's not forget the Stadia.
Yes, and that, again, that's a subscription service.
Nvidia has one of their own, I believe, as well. The Nvidia Shield. I don't know too much about that. Do you know anything about the Nvidia Shield?
I believe you can kind of link it to your Steam account. It's kind of so you can like broadcast it from a device.
Oh, is it kind of
to
like a Steam box?
something sort of, yeah.
Oh, I thought it was like Nvidia's own like gaming console type
I mean, I
deal.
wouldn't be surprised if they had their own subscription service, but I don't know too much into it. But it's its own thing that kind of piggybacks off of Steam and some other stuffs.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Alright, well that's my mindset on that. How about you? What do you got?
Your rant.
It's not a rant, but you know.
That's going good. I've been able to put in some good time with in regards to Days Gone, the game I do own, and that's not a part of a live service. And
I've
like
seen
that.
you continue to play that, so give us a mini review on that. What are you thinking about it? What's the gameplay like? What's the soundtrack like?
From soundtrack is pretty good. It's pretty quiet. I do like it. It can be atmospheric, just in regards to how big the maps are. And,
Ambient.
yeah, and
I want to
regards-
ask you a question about that
What's up?
game. I noticed I was watching one of your playthroughs, and I noticed that these fucking zombies build nests, and that was the thing that stuck out to me the most. Zombies that build nests. Tell me about that. What the hell's up with that?
Yes, I haven't quite gotten too deep into the lore in regard to the backstory in regards to the zombies. It's kind of the opening cutscene. Shit has hit the fan. There's these zombie-like creatures that are wreaking havoc, and now it's like a year later or 2 years later, and it's kind of the aftermath. But it seems like these zombies are prevalent. They don't call them zombies; they call them freaks or freakers. I think for sure they call them freaks.
Freakers. I like
But-
that name.
From what it seems like, I guess to an extent they're still alive. They're not quite undead. They do seem to have like a school herd mentality. And
So they build these nests. Do they like sleep? So am I to assume that they? So you said that they're not undead. So I take it that regardless they need to sleep and
sleep and eat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do they
That seems like
reproduce?
I'm uncertain to that extent, but there are
No, there's a
zombie like kids. That is kind of like the crazy thing and kind of controversial thing when it first came out, because there are little kids. Like, I forgot the exact name for them.
I saw
but-
them too. The little zombie kids.
Yes,
Yeah,
and obviously you can't kill them, and
you can't kill them.
You can you
Oh,
you can kill them, and then the adult zombies can attack them as well, and depending on regardless if they're the small ones or the big ones, when you do kill them, when the random ones that are alive are wandering around, they will happen upon the body and it's kind of start eating from it as well, regardless. So it seems like they have their own kind of cannibalism on dead ones.
Ah. So, what caused this?
Uh, like I said, the thing hasn't quite said what caused it. Um, it was just like I said, the opening cutscene is shit hit the fan. The main character's girlfriend was stabbed, and they're trying to get her evacuated to the nearest.
So basically, everything went awry so fast that before people could even analyze and figure out, oh, this is a virus or whatever, shit was already pretty much going down and going nuts, and now you're just struggling to survive without even fully knowing what the hell happened.
Correct, and obviously as you progress and play more, it's starting to kind of uncover what happened possibly, and it seems like
Did it happen all over the world, or just in?
it's looking like it. But because at this point, it looks like the U.S. government at least pretty much collapsed, and doesn't look like there's anything left of it. But from some of the gameplay that I've seen, it looks like there is some resemblance of a government, or at least like the video game version of the CDC or FEMA type thing that's still operational. It looks like they're trying to study the freaks
The Enclave
or the
will
zombies.
reestablish control.
So, no.
So I got a question. If
Yo.
if you got two zombies, so you say that they engage in primal things, you know, eating, sleeping, cannibalism, and all of that. If two zombies mate, do they have a zombie baby right right out of the gate, so to speak?
What's it with you and reproduction here?
I'm just asking. It's curious. You know, inquiring minds want to know. I mean, like, yeah, it's like, does the zombie baby pop out? Does it eat its way out of the mother? I mean, seriously, like,
I am not amused. If you are curious about this, watch the movie Dead Alive, and towards the end, and that might give you an idea what's going on. But that's not related to this.
Dead Alive.
Yes.
Why do they need nests? That's what thing that I mean. It's like they have any real motor functions anymore other than eating and killing machines. Can't they just drop wherever the hell they want and sleep? Why do they need a nest? Like something like actually there's twigs like a fucking actual bird's nest. It's like, why do they need that? I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I mean, it's just it's definitely original. But I was kind of like, why would a zombie need a nest?
I don't know, man. Like so, it's part of its pack mentality because there's certain areas where there's caves where there'll be a shitload of them in there as well, and they're pretty lived in. And at some points, they kind of hibernate. Like the biggest thing I can kind of pull an example of is I Am Legend in the movie with Will Smith, and they didn't quite say it, but they're basically vampires, and they didn't have quite a nest per se, but they found sanctuary during the day where they slept and kind of hibernated. So it seems like it's along the same premise. And then in the video game wise, it adds to a thing because it's kind of objective to clear these nests so that way it's more safe passage for you. And when you clear those areas out, it leaves this kind of nest residue. And one of those perks is when you unlock the crossbow, when you can make special ammo for the bolt, where if you shoot a different freak or zombie, it gives them a sense where the other zombies in the area will attack that one. So it does add a game up mechanic,
almost like
as well.
Boomer Bile, sort of.
Yes, obviously not to that extreme, but yes, the same concept.
Same concept, just localized to single targets rather than a whole area of effect.
Yes, I haven't quite played around with that mechanic just yet to see its full effect, but I need to check that out a little bit more. But
I imagine you can, because I know I saw that there's human enemies in the game as well, so I imagine you can use that on your human enemies and cause some major havoc with that.
Yes, but then again, I need to play around with it more, because if I shoot a human, I don't think zombies are just going to materialize out of the woodworks to attack them. So
Left 4 Dead style.
Yeah.
We've seen that happen in Left 4 Dead, where fucking there were no zombies, and then all of a sudden they just appear.
Yes.
So, oh, that's cool, man. So you're liking the game?
Yeah, I'm liking the game a lot. I was able to put in some pretty good gameplay. Got a little busy this week, so I haven't had a chance to kind of get back to it just yet. But I will definitely be completing this game. I'm inching my way a little bit, little by little.
I'll be
The only
working my way back up.
um, thing that I kind of wish they could improve would be like the weapon selection, because you have to hold R1, no L1, and that brings up your inventory selection, and then you have to kind of wheel scroll a little bit to, do you want first aid, do you want your pistol, your rifle, and the thing that kind of annoys me the most when I have to do that, it's like, because there's a lot of stealth involved, at least the way I play it, because there's, if you're familiar with Horizon Zero Dawn, some other games, even like I'm drawing blank, but anyways, there's tall grass you can hide in, and you can draw inventory for pebble. You can throw the pebble to distract, get said target, whether it's a regular bandit or zombie, to go into a certain direction, and you can stab them from behind, do a stealth kill. But then for every time you want to throw a pebble, you have to go to your inventory and select the pebble every single time.
Tedious.
And yeah, so I mean, if it had just the pebble selected, and I can lob pebbles, and then that'll be a little bit more easier than having to do it over and over and over.
You wanna know a fucking game that I thought had a goddamn terrible weapon selection screen? And maybe it's just because it was ported to PC and it was a bad port or something, but I thought Dead Island had a horrible weapon selection screen. It's you first of all, you can't use the mouse wheel. At least not. I tried to figure out if there was a way. Didn't look like there was a way. You press like the number buttons to switch back and forth, and you have to constantly bring up the weapon wheel and drag weapons into it. If you have brass knucks, for say, those take up a weapon slot. So you have an unarmed and 2 weapon slots. But rather than fucking just apply brass knucks onto your unarmed, they take up a weapon slot. So essentially you have unarmed brass knucks and a weapon slot. And to me that's ridiculous. Like, why the fuck when you just slip the brass knucks onto your fists? That doesn't make sense. And the weapon selection I always thought was just tedious and stupid, and yeah, I didn't like it on Dead Island at all. Have you played it on console?
I believe I own it for console, but I have not played it on a console yet.
Well, at any rate, yeah, that was definitely my my gripe as far as that game. The game itself wasn't bad. It's just it kind of lacked excitement, but yeah, it's like it is what it is, you know.
Yeah.
But I did want to bring up one other thing, but I'll let you see if you have another topic before I do.
Sure. Not game related, but movie related, I should say. The last movie that I saw was Annabelle Comes Home. And there's a nice little scary movie to the James Wan Annabelle universe. All these movies are universes these days. But it was really good. I saw it. I liked it a lot. It had a lot of elements to it, and some of the scares, they don't spook me. They don't scare me, but some of these, I guess, the jump scares are so simple, and their effects, it's not a whole lot of CGI, but it's a lot of play on camera angles and the way they change the scenes. But it's so simple, but it works so well.
So, recommended movie?
Yes, I do recommend that one, and it was good, especially if you've seen the other movies. It does play part to that. You don't quite necessarily have to see the previous Annabelle movies. I guess you kind of do to get some of the references, but as a standalone, if you haven't seen any others, it is worth it. And the next other crazy horror movie I'm looking forward to seeing is the Midsummer movie. If I'm saying that right?
I've heard about that. Apparently that's part of some kind of new age horror type movies. It's not your standard jump scare horror. It's more like psychological horror. Is that right?
We'll see. Because the same person who made Midsummer was the one who made Hereditary for anyone who's seen those movies, and that one was kind of out there. It was a really good movie. It was a different type of scary movie, but
That's one thing I will say. I do hope that horror film creators tone down, I guess, the jump scares, because to me that's all that they're reliant on. I don't mind a good horror movie. Personally, I was a fan of. I actually really liked The Conjuring 2. I liked that movie, and I felt like, yeah, it had its share of jump scares, but I didn't feel like it was too reliant on that. It definitely built up a creepy story to me, and it was, for somebody who is spiritual and a Christian, that kind of game plays on your fears of things of that nature. So I really liked that movie, but then I saw a movie. Have you ever seen a movie called Lights Out?
yes.
I thought that movie was okay as well, but that movie was nothing but jump scares to me, and I was kind of like, that's jump scares in horror movies are like scatological humor in comedies. Scatological humor is essentially fart jokes. It's the poor man's lack of creativity in these movies. It's kind of like, find some way of creeping the person out instead of just trying to, because essentially what they're doing is going boo. that's what that is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I think jump scares kind of need to be rolled back quite a bit in these horror movies. But yeah, so that's my take on it. But you're the horror guy for sure. You definitely, you're much big. I'm more of a sci-fi guy. You're much bigger into horror than I am, so you'd have a
Yes.
better opinion on it than I would.
But yeah, it's a different take on horror, especially with Hereditary. Towards the end, it kind of became a whole different movie, but it didn't rely too heavily on jump scares. But it definitely was a different type of movie. I don't know, but Midsummer looks interesting. I've seen some of the trailers. Don't want to give anything too much away. Well, I haven't seen it yet either, but it's set to come out tomorrow, I believe. So we'll be seeing it very in the near future. We'll try to talk a little more in depth about it after we see that movie.
Cool. All right, and speaking of movies, I have a question of the week for us, if you'd like to answer.
What's that? Sure.
So it is in regards to movies, actually movies and video games, and this week it comes from Augie G, who wrote, "Here's my question: which horror or sci-fi game would you think would make for a good movie or TV show, and vice versa? Which horror or sci-fi movie/TV show would you like to see as a game?" Do you want to go first, or should I?
You go first if you don't mind, please.
All right, so
That was a very good first. That was a really good question, Augie G.
I like that question indeed,
Yeah.
and I have an answer. And I think it's obvious for anybody who knows me what I would choose for a game to be turned into a movie. Can you guess?
Sailor Moon.
I'm pretty sure there are Sailor Moon movies, but no. And I don't want it as a movie. I would want it as
Here we go.
What?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I would want it as a show, not a movie. What the fuck
No,
here?
Go on.
Here we go.
Sorry.
What? No,
Go
you
ahead.
know what? I refuse.
Augie G.
I'm sick of your condescension.
Augie G wants to know your answer.
I would like to see it as a show, and on something like HBO or something, HBO or Showtime, where they don't censor the gore and whatnot. I would like to see Half-Life, the entire complete saga, at least what's there so far, made into a series. Like, I can imagine, just the series starting out.
Quick question.
Yes.
Live action or CGI?
That's a good question, and I've actually thought, a thought that crossed my mind is, you've seen the movie Hardcore Henry?
Yes.
I thought that if there was ever going to be a movie or a show done in the first person perspective, it should have been Half-Life. I think it'd be interesting to have seen, although that would have just been kind of like playing the game, so I kind of entertained the thought in my head, but I dismissed it. But in reality, live action. And I'd like to see something of a toned down character. See, in my head, and I'll try to kind of keep this brief. I don't want to go get, because I can go start talking about Half-Life. I'll get into it. But in my mind, the game itself, even though Gordon Freeman never says a word, the game and its surroundings, your surroundings, give you a lot of insight into your character and who you are. They mention constantly how you're, kind of the quiet type, not much for words. In Half-Life Opposing Force, there's a giant picture of Gordon Freeman as Employee of the Month. So obviously he's a hard worker, he's diligent, he's trustworthy because he's brand new to this job. Very young scientist, and yet he's being trusted with one of the most important projects there is. He obviously has respect for his elders. The other older scientists seem to really like him, seem to really, think of him as this younger go-getter, but at the same time, so basically with all that, you kind of forge a personality. He's kind of shy, he's reserved, but he's a hard worker. In Half-Life 2, in one of the episodes, Alex Vance says that she heard stories about how Gordon and Barney would actually climb through the ducts to try to get to Kleiner's office whenever he'd lock his keys in his office and lock himself out. So he's obviously not a stranger to getting his hands dirty. He's not, uppity and above other people. He's a common man, brilliant scientist, reserved, down to earth, hard worker. So I would like to see a character who has that kind of personality. Somebody who doesn't talk, basically only talks when he needs to, not, your witty one-liners and all that. And I'd like to see a movie around the Resonance Cascade, the Escape from Black Mesa, the 7 Hours War. Maybe you could have a season that doesn't even include Gordon, showing the 7 Hours War and the invasion of Earth, and then the Earth Rebellion. So that would be, I would love to see a series around Half-Life. So that's my answer for the first part of the question. My second part of the question, and I actually had fun with the second part, and I had a hard time thinking of what I would choose, but I think I've made a great decision.
What's that?
Now, there's obviously been plenty of Predator games, Predator video games, but I would like to see a video game done completely from Predator 2. I would love to see a detective game where you're a detective investigating what the hell is killing all of these people in the middle of a rampant gang war. You're a detective cop and you're investigating, you're trying to figure out what's going on. You don't know what it is, and it slowly but surely, if the levels could be, you even have plenty of cannon fodder. You have in Predator 2, you have the Jamaicans, you have the Colombians, so you could invade drug warehouses and stuff, and there could be little attacks by the Predator. I think it's just a great premise where it could be like a detective sci-fi horror game. So I think that'd be a perfect premise for a game. I would love to see a video game like that, just specific to Predator 2. So that's my answer.
Those are some good selections. I had a feeling you were gonna go the Half-Life route, but
I mean,
that would be pretty. It was without saying. I'm not saying in a bad way, but yes, it was kind of a given.
All right. So what's your answer?
For me, for a movie to be converted into a video game, I would say Event Horizon. That was a super trippy movie for the lore of that movie, and especially with just them trying to find this ghost ship basically in space, and for it to pop up, and for where that ship went and how it came back. It was pretty crazy. I thought it was pretty crazy. I would
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Are we recording?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm gonna like jump in. So, hey everybody! Showing up out of nowhere is your very own lovely ringleader in the middle of this
Indeed.
thing. To hear my son in the background, he may join the voice call later.
Nice.
Oh. How you going? How's it going, Ring?
Doing all right. Just got home.
That's cool. How'd your day go?
Well, I just got my son. We just got home, and that's it. So, what's the current topic we're talking about right now?
We're answering the question of the week. Obs was the question of the week to kind of get you caught up was, which horror or sci-fi game would you think would make for a good movie or TV show, and vice versa? Which horror or sci-fi movie/TV show would you like to see as a video game? So Obs was saying the first part of his answer, which was Event Horizon turned into a video game, which I've seen that movie. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember it was a very trippy movie. I don't remember the name of the actor, but he's the one that played Dr. Grant is in that, right?
Yes.
I remember the scene that stands out for me is when his face is all jacked up. He's all like mutated or whatever from that. It's been a while since I've seen it. But anyway, go ahead and continue with your answer.
Yes. Well, that's my input in regards to the movie. If that were to be converted into a game, I know there's Dead Space, I guess. There's a few other games that kind of maybe fall under that lore, but to me, that to see that specifically kind of transition into that type of a game, that'd be pretty cool. And for me, for game to get converted into a movie, my go-to would be BioShock.
Man, which one? An Infinite or the original?
I'll go with the original, just with that whole
Big Daddy's
start of this Big Daddy, the whole kind of steampunk, futuristic, retro, all into one. The cities underwater.
Oh, you know the descent into the underworld into the underwater world would be a really, really cool scene in a movie.
Yeah, and I mean the effects in the game itself were at that time. I know they remastered it now, but it was pretty cool. And then for it to come out into a big screen, into that type of movie, and especially like the elemental effects and all that, and the crazy people. And I've seen some people dress up like that for different cosplay events and Halloween, so it's kind of always cool to see it like that. But then to see it like on a massive scale, that would be pretty badass.
So, in my opinion, from video game to movie or television series, it's technically already is a movie or television
You
series.
can't say War Thunder. There have been plenty of World War II movies. You can't say War Thunder.
Oh, shut the fuck up! I'm sitting to the content here. I would have to say the specific scenario, which is Alien Isolation. It does track a bit differently because it involves the space station. It also involves the daughter of Ripley, and the plot behind the androids is much more thicker in that particular game than others or the movies that are already out there. And it does play true to the motif of what Alien is about.
So I'm sorry, I was just gonna say. So it'd be almost like a new age version of the original Alien. Because if I remember correctly, Alien Isolation has some very keen similarities to the original Alien as far as the kind of slasher horror feel to it. Rather than being like Aliens or Alien 2, however you want to call it, rather than being a action movie, it's more like slasher horror. So it could be
that would be an incorrect assumption because the movie, the Alien Isolation, feels like the first film. It establishes the suspense, the idea behind it, the madness, and then it transitions in the last part of the game to an Aliens Isolation, where you take on the hive a bit and more aliens, though you do not do direct combat. You're still in a survival mode.
So best of both worlds, basically.
Essentially.
All right. What's your vice versa?
Vice versa. You know what? That's to be a particularly tough one to think about. But I would have to say,
How about I'll give you a moment to think about it, because you inspired me to say something that actually might make me change my answer from half. Believe it or not, what Ring was saying kind of made me think about another movie or another game that I would love to see turned into a movie involving the late Harold Ramis, and that's Ghostbusters the video game. Ghostbusters the video game has a plot that's in its purest form a Ghostbusters plot, and it is essentially part. Many people consider it the third
it is.
Ghostbusters.
I mean, even Harold Ramis says this is the third film.
Well,
which never became a film, just became a
right,
set.
right. Well, I would love to see that as a movie. That would be amazing, and I even think if there was a way that somebody had shot maybe a secret reel that was lost and then it could just suddenly be discovered, and if somebody gave me the option, you could see Half-Life the series or Ghostbusters 3 the movie from the Ghostbusters video game, I don't know, man. I don't know which one I would choose. I honestly don't. I would actually, it would be a hard decision, but that's another one that I would think about.
I would say that Half-Life would be a poor movie option because the protagonist is silent.
You shut your time mouth.
No, I'm not wrong in this one.
Shut
the fuck up. I love Half-Life as much as the next guy, okay? But I do realize that the adaptation of it in a film is very limited, at least in its current format.
If done right.
Hold on, shut up. Let me finish. But there was a film that kind of took the concept, not just the plot, but just the general concept, which was damn it, what was it called? It was something Freddy, where it was entirely shot from the first person's perspective of the character.
You're talking about Hardcore Henry.
Hardcore Henry, yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. That was shot entirely from the first person's perspective, but it has to move at a certain pace in order to keep attraction. Because you gotta remember, the film has to be able to sell.
Keep in mind, folks, Ring joined us late.
It has to be able to sell and be able to move in the theaters. If it cannot grasp the audience, then it won't work as a film. Because remember, movies are there to make money first. Art and everything else is secondary. That's what it is. Unless you're indie and shit, whatever. But Hardcore Henry would be a fine example of that in action, but just on a much higher budget, because involving the scene and stuff like that, and what's going on in the film.
A reason I say to keep in mind that you tuned in late is because actually I drew that comparison myself, but yes. Anyway, what is your so you gave us a game that you'd like to see into a movie. What movie or show would you like to see into a game?
I'm gonna be a little bit biased because I can't think of much off the top of my head.
Venture Brothers.
No. I'm thinking something along the line of like Chernobyl. Well, actually, no. Technically, there already is a Chernobyl game, which is the Call of Pripyat. What was it called?
Yeah, Stalker. The Call of Pripyat.
So technically, it already is, and there's another Chernobyl game coming out soon, so we can ignore that. But you know, I've been watching Sherlock lately. The Benedict Cumberbatch version, which is on Amazon and other stuff. I could see a plot-driven story mode, kind of like Living or Walking Dead and other games like that do like a story, like Jurassic Park, that do specifically a game around the story mode. It doesn't have to be interactive. It doesn't have to be like Alien Isolation or anything like that. It could just be a point-and-click adventure essentially. And a game like Sherlock would be fine for that. And that's what I would like to see. Just off the top of my head.
You are aware that there are, by Frogware Games, some really good Sherlock Holmes games, right?
I haven't touched them too much, to be honest.
They're good. I'm a big fan of them. My favorite's Sherlock Holmes vs. Jack the Ripper. It's a really good game.
I do want to see some Benedict Cumberbatch versions, though. What? That particular version of the show or the series is very entertaining.
No, that's fine. I'm not saying nothing. I'm just saying it's kind of funny.
Have you seen it?
No, I have not. I'm not shitting on it or anything. I just haven't seen it.
Okay. The show takes a very alternate approach. It's set in modern day, not in the 20s or 30s or 40s or the usual Sherlock films.
Yeah.
It's set in modern day.
Yeah, I am aware of it. It's basically Sherlock Holmes in the modern day. I just haven't seen it.
You should, because it's a very, very, very entertaining watch. The first episode sets up the relationship when both Sherlock and Watson meet, which then sets up the situation for the remainder of the series. And it does have a lot, and I mean a lot of fucking what's it called?
Yeah.
Plot devices, plot turns, all that stuff, and it's just very entertaining to watch.
That's cool. Deuce, I hate to interject, but I have to actually depart. I can tag out, Ring, you can tag in, but I have to go right now. That planet needs me.
Well,
If anyone who gets that reference.
yeah, we're full of Simpsons references here, but no, actually, you're not gonna miss much because we're actually getting ready to wrap things up here as well. I do want to thank Augie G for posing the question. Thank you for joining us, Obs. Go and settle down now.
Yo. No.
At any rate, that's gonna do it for this week's Shoot the Shit Saturday. The only thing that I do want to kind of shout out is our indie game of the week, which is a game called Escape First 2 that me and Obs played a little earlier this week and kind of got our asses stuck in. It's an escape room game. Very fun game. Really, really enjoyed it. We neared the end of one of the rooms and we just kind of got stuck and we couldn't figure out our way out of there. It's by a developer called On Skull Games, and if you're into escape rooms and if you're into puzzles and stuff like that, it's worth a pickup. The ambience is nice, has a very Saw-like feel to it, so very fun game, very cool, worth a pickup, and that's our indie game of the week. So anything to add to that, Ring, before we cut and run here?
Settle down.
Indeed. All right, well, thank you guys for joining us. We had Obsolete 2003 here earlier. We were joined midway by Mr. Ringleader 064, and I, of course, have been Espionage DB7. If you liked what you saw, please don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends and families and camaraderie, comment below, and subscribe, but most importantly, settle down.